أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. As Brother Faris told you, this is my new home now, alhamdulillah, for now. And it's interesting when you talk about homes because I think that because I've been traveling so much in the last few years and even moving so much, it becomes difficult to call something home. And I think that there's something that's positive about that, and that is that the Prophet ﷺ told us that we should actually strive to be in this world like a traveler or a stranger. And when you reflect on this advice that he's giving, you know, he goes on to say that, you know, when he was actually being offered a comfortable place to sleep, and he said, Mali walid dunya, what do I have to do with this life? He says, I'm like a traveler who stops in the shade of a tree for a while and then just continues on his path. And when you think about the concept of being a traveler, I'm actually sitting here and I'm thinking how it actually feels different for me to speak here in Raleigh than it does when I'm traveling. There's a certain sense when you're traveling of being a stranger. And I think that whenever I'm traveling, I feel more dependent on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala somehow naturally. Those of you who are here, who are not from Raleigh, there's a sort of feeling of being strange anytime you're traveling or you're in a strange place. So when the Prophet ﷺ is advising us to be in this life like a traveler, we have to reflect about that statement. What does that mean, and how does that translate to our, our reality, or how we live our life? To answer that question, think about how you felt the last time you were traveling, and suppose that you were staying at a hotel. And when you think about how you interact with that hotel room, just think about that small example. When someone is staying at the Best Western or Motel 6 for that matter, how much money and time and effort do you spend decorating your hotel room? Does anyone do that? Does anyone go to Home Depot or Michael's or whatever, or Pottery Barn, and buy all this expensive furniture to decorate their hotel room? The answer is obviously no. Do you put up, get all this furniture and then decorate the house, decorate the room? And when I ask you why don't you do that? Think about for a moment, why is it that you don't put in all this money and effort to decorate your hotel room? What's the answer? Because you know it's temporary. Because you know I'm only here for a day, I'm only here for 2 days. Those of you who are staying in a hotel to be at this conference, you know what? You really don't have much of an attachment to your hotel room. Am I right? Is anyone in this room get really attached to their hotel bed? You know what I mean? You really don't care. Like, you don't go in there and you're like, oh man, like, look at the color of the blanket, you know? I need to change the color. I don't like this color, right? You really don't care. You're like, you know what? It works. And the reason you have that attitude is because you know that you're there for a very temporary period of time and then you're leaving. This is the attitude that the Prophet ﷺ told us to have in this entire life. That we're in this life just like we're in that hotel room. That we know that we're not staying here forever and eventually we're leaving. Like he said, the shade of a tree for a while and then you leave. When you have that mindset, you live very, very differently. And you start to have your priorities set very, very differently. Now the ayah here that is used for this session, Inna salati wa nusuki wa mahyaya wa mamati lillahi rabbil alameen. This is such a powerful statement. This is the statement of Ibrahim alayhi salam. He says that indeed, Inna salati, my prayer, wa nusuki, and my sacrifice. I want to take a moment and talk about sacrifice for a moment, because sometimes we don't really understand, well, why does it have to be so hard sometimes? Or why do I have to sacrifice? What is the purpose of sacrifice? Is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just interested in us, for example, in Ramadan? Do you think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is just interested in us being hungry? I mean, does Allah gain anything from us being hungry or thirsty? What's the answer? Obviously no. So there is a higher purpose for our sacrifice, and that purpose is not because it benefits Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is because it directly benefits the one who sacrifices. Anytime you sacrifice, you are the one who benefits. The question now is, well, what's the benefit of sacrifice? Why can't it just be really easy? Why do I have to, why is Fajr at a time when I'd rather sleep? Why is Qiyam, the time when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He comes to the lowest heaven in the last third of the night, and He calls out, who is calling on me so I can hear, I answer their call, who's asking from me so that I can give them what they ask for, who's seeking forgiveness so I can forgive them. Why does it have to be at a time when it's so hard to wake up? Why couldn't it be like, after Dhuhr or something when I'm already awake anyways? There's a reason for this sacrifice. Have you ever thought about why is it that there's so much pain in childbirth? Has anyone ever reflected about that? Don't you think that it could have been easy? Don't you think pregnancy could have been easy? Why is it that we go through these struggles? And why is it that we need to sacrifice? Why is it so hard to raise a child? Why do they stay up all night? You have to give up your sleep as a parent. There is a benefit in the sacrifice itself. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that you will not reach وَلَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ. This is a very, very powerful and profound statement. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that you will never reach true righteousness or true goodness. Bir. You will not reach true righteousness until you give from that which you love. Until you give from that which you love. So you can give, I'm going to use the example of charity. When you're giving to charity, maybe you're collecting clothes to give to Goodwill or something. And you know how you can collect like all your old stuff that you don't really like anyway? That action, yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can reward you for it, but that's not what's being talked about here. There is a difference between giving that which you love and giving that which you really don't care much about. They are not the same. The effect of giving what you love. Now that's where I want us to go. What's the benefit of giving from that which you love? What's the benefit of that? This brings us back to the very purpose of our creation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسِ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. You know how a lot of people go through life, if they're awake, and they ask this question, what's my purpose? Right? What am I doing here? Where did I come from and where am I going? Pretty much anyone, if they're paying attention, asks these questions. Right? Allah has answered that question in this ayah. He says that He has created jinn and ins for no other purpose. Notice that the way that this ayah is structured is actually very important. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسِ. It actually begins with a negation. Like, it doesn't just say the purpose of your creation is. It says that we have not created we have not created humans and jinn. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ or jinn وَالْإِنس, jinn and ins, for any other purpose. For any other purpose. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the one purpose. So you first delete any other purpose. Like, I wasn't put on this earth to make as much money as possible. I wasn't put on this earth to be as thin as possible. I wasn't put on this earth to be, have the highest status as possible. But rather, there's just one purpose. And that's ubudiyya, to be a abd to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it becomes very important to understand what that means. What does it mean to be a abd? What does abd mean? Slave. Illa liya'budun, except to fulfill this purpose of ubudiyya, this purpose of slavehood to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Under that is so much. But ultimately, it is to give my heart solely to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now here's the problem we face in dunya. The problem we face is that we are bombarded by so many things. We're bombarded by status, we're bombarded by money, we're bombarded by all these things pulling us in different directions. People, there's the creation that's pulling us. And what often happens is that we start to love the creation as we should love the Creator. And that includes everything of the creation. We start to love money more than we love the Creator. We start to love status more than we love the Creator. We start to love other people more than we love the Creator, or as we should love the Creator. Now, is there anyone in this room? I'm talking to a room full of Muslims and believers, inshallah. No one in this room is going to raise their hand and say, actually, I love money more than God. Or I love money as I should love God. Is there anyone who would say that with their tongue? Hopefully not, right? No one's going to raise their hand and say, I love my job as I should only love my Creator. Or I love my spouse, or I love my children as I should only love my Creator. No one says it, right? Can we all agree? Okay. But unfortunately, that is the case, but we don't say it. But in our hearts, we have competitors with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We love other things as we should only love Him. Now the natural question is, what's the natural question? How would you know, right? Can anyone look into their heart with a special, their spiritual heart and see what they love most? Physically see it? No. So how do you know? I'm going to ask you guys to... You can either write it down or just mentally ask yourself the following questions. Those of you who are, just ask yourself the following questions. The first question I want you to ask yourself is, what do I think about all day? What occupies my mind most all day long? So something comes to mind. We're aware that there's something that we think about a lot. Right now, what do you think about most? Does everyone have some answer in their brain? Or are people completely unaware? We have some answer, right? Okay. What am I most afraid of losing? There's things in our life which we become very, very anxious at the thought of losing. What is that? What am I most afraid of losing? It causes actually a physical reaction. Sometimes it's your heart will start pounding. Sometimes just the thought of losing this thing. Sometimes it's your mother, it's your father, it's your spouse. It's something. So what is that thing? Does everyone have an answer in their brain? Yes? Can you nod if you do? Okay, because everyone has a very blank look on their face. I like nodding, so I know you get what I'm saying. Third question. What makes you cry? The last time you cried, what was it about? And then the time before that. And the time before that. What's causing you to cry? Do you guys know the answer? Do you have an answer? Okay. Next question. The last time you got really, really angry, the last time you lost it, you were just so angry, what was it about? And what was being threatened when you got angry? Was it your ego? Was it your money? Was it your business? What was it that made you really angry? Is there an answer? Not? Okay, good. What do you think about during Salah? Let me just be honest, because, yeah. Now, you know how sometimes there's two types of thoughts during Salah? There's the random thought, something that came to your brain that never came to your brain ever before or ever after. It's weird. That's most likely shaitan, just trying to distract you. But then there's another type of thought, which is a persistent thought. It's that same thought you were thinking about before you prayed, and the same thought you're going to think about after you pray, and the same thought that keeps you up at night, and the same thought that the first thing you think about in the morning and the last thing you think about before you sleep. So it's the same thing you're thinking about in salah. So what is that thing? You guys have an answer? I only saw a couple nods. Okay. Lastly, I want you to ask yourself this question. What causes me the most pain in my life? What's the cause of my, what's that thing that hurts me again and again and again? What is it? What is it related to? Does everyone have an answer? No? Yes? Yes or no? Okay. And this is not necessarily making you sad, but any kind of just consistent pain, whether it's anger, disappointment, whatever it is. Now, when you look at this list, you now have a list of, 6 or 7 things. How many people have pretty much the same thing for each answer? Like yeah. Okay. Do you guys see what I'm saying? Now, this answer that you have for all of these items, or that you have for most of them, that is what you love most. That is what you love most. So we said we couldn't look in our hearts with this special, apparatus. These are some ways to look into the heart and see what is it really that you love most. Now, I asked you this question. I said, what do you think about most? How many people was the answer Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Let's just be real. Allahu Akbar. One person. Alhamdulillah. But it takes some time to get there. And it takes a process, believe me. She knows, it takes a process. Most of the people in this room, was the answer Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Let's be real. We say that we love Allah most. But He is not who we're thinking about most. What we're thinking about most. He is not the cause. He's not what makes us cry. It is other things. For some, it's actually a person in their life. Like for this whole half of the room. Everyone has their attachments. And for women, it tends to be other people. That's our attachment.
Sorry, guys.
Maybe it may or may not be that for men. It may be something else. It may be their job. It may be their ego. Maybe status. Maybe money. Whatever it is. But it's something. And most of the time, it has nothing to do with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So are we on the same page now? So we start to recognize now, wait, this is what I really love most. Now I'm going to tell you what happens when you love something other than Allah as you should only love Allah. There's a couple consequences of this. The first consequence is that thing, that thing that you wrote to answer these questions, becomes the cause of your greatest pain. You're taking your heart and you're doing something to it that you were never supposed to do. Because the heart is created by Allah for Allah. Does that make sense? Meaning that your greatest love and your deepest love is supposed to be for your Creator. And when it is for something else, and when there's anything competing with that, it breaks the heart. Because Allah made the heart in a certain way. And this, like the sister was saying, and anyone who has gotten to a point where they have made Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the focal point, believe me, it takes a process, right? It takes a long process sometimes. And sometimes it actually is a long process of that pain that comes with putting something else there. So that thing that you put there, whether it was your money or your business or your status or your ego or other people, those people will keep on, that love itself will keep on hurting you. It will keep on hurting your love of your job, your love of your business. It will continuously torture you because of your anxiety. You're always thinking about it. You're always worrying about it. The people, they will continuously keep hurting you if you love them as you should only love Allah. So now you will see that the first consequence is the pain that happens. Because you are taking the heart and contorting it in a way that it was never supposed to be. You are loving something as you should have only loved your creator. It doesn't work. The heart actually can't handle it. That's why it hurts so much. You understand? And that pain itself is an indication that you need to make a change. And this is why people eventually make a change, because of the pain. You know when you're standing too close to a stove, and if you were to touch the fire or the flame or whatever the heat, even if you're not looking, what makes you move your arm? Or your elbow? What would make you move your hand? It is pain. So it's the pain that tells you, Sara, Ahmed, whatever, there's a problem, you need to make a change. In this case, move your arm. Move your arm, make a change. Emotional pain is the same thing. People eventually, the pain, it's like, okay, again and again, I keep falling into the same pattern. This is causing me, my obsession with my job, or my obsession with school, or my obsession with this person is causing me so much pain that I have to make a change. Make sense? So it pushes you to make a change. It pushes you to purify. There's something in there that's not supposed to be in there. It's like an intruder. And you need to get it out. It's like, you're not supposed to be in there. We have to make a change. Similarly, think about this reality this is across the physical reality. If a person has a heart condition, as in heart disease, what typically lets that person know that they have heart disease? It's chest pain. Angina, is that what it's called? Angina. Is that right? Yeah. Chest pain. My dad had chest pain for 4 years, and his doctor did not know what was wrong. And it was his heart. There's an indication. But the problem is a lot of us have these indicators, this pain, but we don't know what the problem is. The problem is that we have loved something as we should only love the Creator. That's the problem, just boiled down. Now, when people feel that pain, so a person feels the chest pain, a first person feels that their arm is burning, some people react very self-destructively, and that's they pop a pill to numb. Right, the painkiller, they'll pop a painkiller. So it's like, I have chest pain, instead of going and figuring out why I have the chest pain, I just take a bunch of painkiller and I numb it. And we have lots of painkillers out there. Drugs, alcohol, music, our company, our zillions of gadgets, right? Every kind of gadget. We don't even have a moment to just stop and think, because we're always either texting someone or updating a status or liking a status. We're always numbing it, right? There's something wrong. I don't want to think about it. There's some emptiness. There's a hole there, but I don't want to think about it. I just want to numb it. Isn't that how we live our life? We're always needing to be entertained. Even when it comes to speakers, and I think speakers feel this too. You feel the need to entertain, right? It's like everybody just wants to be entertained. Sometimes I feel like it's like you have to be, some speakers, they have to be over the top and just entertain them. It's like, no, we're not clowns. The fact is that we are so used to demanding this constant entertainment. I have to constantly be stimulated somehow because I don't want to think. I don't want to reflect. I don't want to change. I'm afraid to think. I'm afraid to reflect, and I'm afraid to change. But we have to. Because if you're not doing that, then you're just like the person who has the chest pain, but tells the doctor, you know what, just give me painkiller. Just give me the painkiller. I don't care to solve the problem. I just don't want to feel it. I just don't want to know that I have it. And there's a true story. This is a true story. That there was a man who he had such severe tooth pain. Anyone who's felt that knows it's very bad. So he goes to the dentist, but he doesn't have dental insurance. So the dentist tells him you have an infection and you need 2 medications. One is to cure the infection, the antibiotic, and one is to help with the pain. So he has to choose, because he doesn't have dental insurance, he chooses between the two. And you know what he chooses? What do you think he chooses? The painkiller. And that's what a lot of us do. So he chooses the painkiller. So now he's not feeling the pain anymore, which is not pushing him to make a change anymore. So you know what ends up happening? His infection spreads to the brain and he ends up dying. This is a true story. I read it in the news. And I think it's so profound because that's what so many of us are doing. We have a problem. Like I pointed out to you, 7 items. There's an issue, but we don't want to face it. We want to escape it. We want to numb it. We want to keep our minds occupied with distractions. And as a result, we are allowing these diseases inside of us to spread. And they're not being addressed. The obvious next question is, well, how do we do it? How do we address these problems? We realize that they're there now. What do you do next? That's a big question, because that's the whole journey of purification of the heart. And that process is a lifelong process. It doesn't happen like, no one says, okay, I don't need to take a shower today because I took one last month, right? Hopefully. Wow. Hopefully no one says that. It's a constant cleansing process. Similarly, no one says, I don't need to eat dinner today because I ate dinner last month. Because you wouldn't live to say that. Or I don't need to eat because I ate last month. The point is that we have to consistently be feeding our bodies to stay alive. And in the same way, we need to consistently be feeding our hearts and our souls to keep them alive. And we need to be cleaning our bodies consistently. You cannot just take a shower once a month and expect that you're going to be clean. No one's even going to want to be next to you. And yet our hearts are very dirty. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees that. If we are not cleaning our hearts through tawbah, coming back to Allah continuously, every time we mess up, you don't lose hope, but you keep coming back to Allah and knowing that messing up is part of the process. Anyone who expects to be perfect has already set themselves up for failure. Because you weren't created to be angels. And I want you guys to reflect about something. If we were supposed to be perfect and never mess up, then why would the most emphasized attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be His forgiveness and His mercy? Right? There is a reason Allah tells us again and again and again how forgiving He is and how merciful He is and how forbearing He is and how He deals with us. Forbearing, Halim. Because we will mess up, we are not perfect. So we have to know that that's not what's expected of us. But what is expected of us is that we don't lose hope. Because it was shaitan, that was shaitan's problem. We've heard the story of Iblis so many times as growing up, but we don't really reflect about the story. What was the problem that shaitan did? And if I ask you that, you're all going to say it was that he was arrogant. Yes. You're going to say it was because he didn't bow to Adam. Yes. But let me ask you this. Had he done that and then repented, would Allah not have forgiven him? Didn't Adam repent? You guys see where I'm going? Adam ate from a tree he wasn't supposed to. We know that. And yet Adam ended up becoming a prophet. Even though he did something he wasn't supposed to, but he did something important in between. What did he do in between? رَبَّنَا ظَلَمْنَا أَنفُسَنَا وَإِن لَمْ تَغْفِرْ لَنَا وَتَرْحَمْنَا لَنَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. He repented. He said, "Oh, my Lord, we have wronged our own selves. And if you do not forgive us and have mercy on us, we will indeed be among the wrongdoers."